You're about to see a module from my How to Get Into Medical School course. If you find the stuff in this module helpful, there's a link to the full thing down below. Okay, so let's talk about how we actually prep for the MCAT. One big issue a lot of people run into is they come across way too many resources and they're not sure about what to pick, and they kind of suffer from a lot of redundancy. I think these are all you really need. You just need UWorld, practice exams, and then these two are maybes, by the way. Like Anki and Sketchy they're kind of over here. Definitely these two, maybe these two. And then I think everything outside of this list is like largely unnecessary. Kaplan, Princeton, other sort of learning resources, assuming you've done your prerequisites, are mostly time wasters. They're nice, but for the large part, it's much more efficient to just do your UWorld and to just spam your practice exams. Okay, let's talk about UWorld first and your practice exams. What are these? They're practice questions. UWorld is a QBank. It has 3,000, 4,000 questions. There are 7 official practice exams. Each of them is a full-length MCAT, which I think is like 256 questions or something like that. These are kind of the mainstay of both your learning and your practice. A lot of people think UWorld is like learning only. A lot of people think UWorld is practice only. That's not true at all. It's just as much of a learning tool. The explanations are really good, and if you're doing UWorld properly, which we'll talk about in a second, it can be a really great supplement to your learning process. So, how do we do UWorld? Some people like just blazing through 40 questions a day, and then calling it a day. That typically takes them like an hour and a half. You should spend more than an hour and a half a day on your MCAT prep, especially in your dedicated period. The way you want to do UWorld is you don't want to just answer questions really fast and move on. You want to understand, first of all, the concept behind the question you're kind of reading into, but you also want to understand why each answer choice is incorrect. So when you do a question, in a perfect world, you would figure out the right answer, but then you would also know what each wrong answer choice was referring to. And then you would like know kind of how they would ask about those wrong answer choices, maybe in a different question. This takes a while to do. Like 10 questions can take an hour if you do it this way, but it really reinforces your knowledge. And it leverages active recall, which of course is super important whenever we talk about learning. You want to do at least 40 a day, and that should take you like 3 to 4 hours ish. You might get faster at it as time goes on, but at the beginning, that's kind of how much time you're going to be spending. You also want to really make sure you understand all the explanations and all the different ways that same question could have been asked. So you want to take your time with this. Don't be afraid to have a chat GPT window open where you can, ask it questions or whatever while you're reviewing. You also want to make sure you have time to do your incorrect. So let's say there are 4,000 questions in UWorld. If you do 40 a day, it's not going to take you 100 days to finish. It's going to take you more than that because once you've done the 4,000, you then need to go back and do your incorrects, right? So if you have a 60% correct rate, that might take you, another 40 days to do. You need to factor that into your kind of overall timing when you're figuring out how many questions you're going to do a day. So that's UWorld pretty well covered. Now let's talk about these official practices. There's 7. Each of them is a full-length MCAT. And obviously you're going to do it in one day because you're going to do the real MCAT in one day as well. You want to schedule these out weekly before your test date. So let's say your test is 14 weeks from now. That means 7 weeks from now, you're going to start doing an exam a day. Now, you might not even have that much time, in which case you're just going to have to adjust your schedule and make things work. Maybe you need to do 2 practices a week. Maybe you need to do 3 a week. But it's more important than anything else that you finish all of these. When you do these, you want to spend the next day reviewing them really well. And when you review them, you want to almost memorize each question they ask. And I don't mean like throw them into flashcards or something. I just mean really know the answers and the incorrect answer choice as well. Because a lot of times, AAMC, the company which makes these exams, will repeat questions and repeat different concepts. So they might ask a question that looks really similar, but they've changed the detail to make a previously incorrect answer the new correct answer. That's a freebie if you review your exams properly, but it's a really challenging question if you don't. Okay, so schedule those out well, and you should be good. All right, let's talk about Anki. This one is probably going to be a little bit controversial because a lot of people swear by Anki. So if you don't know what it is, it's like Quizlet, and if you don't know what that is, that's a flashcard app. Anki is also a flashcard app. It's just a bit more customizable and it has a better algorithm. And more importantly, it has a really cool pre-made deck called Anki. So this is a really large flashcard deck made, and it's supposed to be pretty comprehensive for the MCAT. It's not perfect, but people who use it do get 528s, and I mean people who use it as their primary resource. So why am I against it? I think it's largely unnecessary for the amount of like benefit it gives you. I think you get more bang for your buck just doing UWorld. It's definitely a positive, right? But it just takes a tremendous amount of time. If you're already spending 3 hours a week doing, or sorry, 3 hours a day doing UWorld, Anki's going to add another two to that, without a shadow of a doubt. And especially with the pre-made deck, a lot of the just churning through these cards can get pretty frustrating for a lot of people, and it can burn them out. And while we all like to think that we're immune to burnout and we can do like anything we want, it's important to kind of be aware of the reality of how Anki is going to make you feel. If you've done flashcards in the past, or if you really just want to try it, that's fine. You can go ahead and try the Anki. Just do it after your UWorld because the UWorld takes priority over the flashcards. It's more important to get that stylistic adaptation done with your UWorld and to get your active recall done through all those practice questions than it is to get them done through flashcards because the flashcards are not going to show up on the exam. The UWorld is. So obviously you should prioritize the question bank, right? Great. Um, there's one caveat to this don't use Anki philosophy I'm pushing, which is your self-made decks. So let's say you keep getting like some topic wrong while doing cubing, or you keep like switching some facts or something. That is a good time to make your own flashcards. Just to get a couple facts down that you otherwise just can't remember. If you do that, you'll probably have a maximum of like 100, 150 flashcards by the end of your entire study session, which is like 5% of what the Onking study deck is, and it'll take you at most like 20 minutes a day to get through it. So if you think that's going to help you, fine, you can do it. Otherwise, again, in my personal opinion, I wouldn't use Anki. A lot of people I've worked with started with Anki and then dropped it once they realized they weren't getting that much of a benefit out of it. But if you really think it's important, or if someone's convinced you that Anki is like the only way to study, please just do it after UWorld. Okay, last thing we're going to talk about is Sketchy. So this is probably the newest thing over here for a lot of you. Um, Sketchy is something I learned about in medical school. It's a really cool like mnemonic technique, and what it does is it attaches different facts and names to a sketch, a picture like the one over here. And what that does is it creates a memory anchor that your brain can easily hold on to. So it's a lot easier for us to remember like a story or a scene than it is for us to remember random facts. The problem is we're tested on random facts. So it's Sketchy, they incorporate said facts into a very memorable scene. So this isn't from the MCAT Sketchy, they have an MCAT specific version. This is from the medical student Sketchy, which is what I have access to. So it's the example I have up here. So in this, just to give you an idea of how this works, this sketch is about thiamine, which is vitamin B1. Now, as a medical student, I need to know a lot about this vitamin. I need to know different substrates it's a part of, and I need to know different reactions it's involved in, and other stuff like that. So, if we look at this image here, one thing about thiamine is It's involved with an enzyme called pyruvate dehydrogenase. So when you're first learning about the enzyme, it's kind of a mouthful and it's hard to keep in your head. But in this sketchy, they've incorporated this pirate here, and she is mopping up the spill on the counter. So she's dehydrogenating the spill. So if I remember this, I can easily recreate pyruvate dehydrogenase for the pirate dehydrogenating the table. And there are plenty of other things like that in the sketch. Like there's some keys here for transketolase, and it says transport over here, so that reminds you of it. Uh, there is a guy who is kind of like confused. You see the question mark on his head, which reminds you of Wernicke-Korsakoff syndrome. Korsakoff vodka is up here, along with alcohol bottles, which deplete your thiamine stores. All sorts of nerdy stuff. My point is, these are great mnemonics which work really well for a lot of people. They seem strange on first glance, but everyone I know who's tried them has had really great results with them. So it's a bit pricey, but I would go get a sketchy MCAT subscription and I would use it on the areas that you're kind of weak in, the areas that require a lot of memorization that you maybe just don't have down yet.